Based in the southern U.S. state of Texas, Amber Briggle is an advocate for LGBTQ children. She is the mother of a 13-year-old transgender son, Max.
Have you seen him? He cut his hair.
Briggle and her husband, Adam, support Max in being who he is. They share their experiences as a family through social media and the internet, including their website, Love to the Max. She is a founding member of a nationwide coalition and support group called Parents for Transgender Equality. We asked Amber Briggle about the importance of bringing visibility to families like hers and how we can make society more inclusive for LGBTQ children.
So I think it's really important for parents to know that they're not alone. Like, they are not alone. Like, statistically speaking, like, there's, millions of kids around the world who are just like yours, right? I think a lot of times parents don't talk about it publicly out of fear for their own family's safety. I know parents who have been pressured to quit their job because their child was transgender. So parents don't often talk about their trans-inclusive families or their trans children because they may lose everything. We are not the only trans-inclusive family in Texas. Max is not the only transgender child in the country. Like, they are literally everywhere. And the more that we talk about this, the more that children and their parents are able to kind of find the language that they need to talk about this in a safe, understanding space.
Since he was very little, Max always wanted to dress as a boy. At first, Briggle didn't think too much about it. But after a few years, Briggle noticed that Max was not comfortable with the gender which had been assigned to him at birth. It led her on a journey of discovery about being the parent of a transgender child.
As time went on, it got harder to get him dressed and out the door in the morning. I like wearing dresses and having long, pretty hair. And so I would dress my child that way too, be like my little mini-me. He hated it. And I didn't understand then what I know now, which is that there's a difference between gender expression and gender identity, right? So your gender identity is who you are. Your gender expression is how you present that to the world, right? So there's a lot of tomboys out there with short hair, right? That's their gender expression, but their gender identity is female, right? So we gave Max the space to cut his hair and wear whatever he wanted, and he was happy, but only for so long. And when I first kind of started noticing him feeling uncomfortable, was probably he was maybe 4 or 5, because he presented as your kind of typical, stereotypical, American white boy, buzz cut, basketball shorts, Star Wars tennis shoes, and he'd hold the door for people, and people would walk by him and be like, "Oh, what a nice young gentleman you have there." And I'd be like, "That's a girl, let me blow your mind. Like, there's so many different ways to be a girl." Like, trying to think that I was gonna be like this, like, empowered feminist, right? Like, trying to, like, educate them. As I would notice after a while that Max would just kind of shrink, like, "Oh, why'd you have to do that?" Like they thought I was a boy, And he wouldn't say it. He wouldn't say that, but I could see it. And I could feel his body just kind of curl up and cringe. And it was a long process, many years. But I eventually came to the understanding that it wasn't the strangers who were misgendering my child, it was me. And that Max wasn't the one who needed to change. It was me. I had to change my understanding about what was going on.
When Max was in first grade, Briggle noticed that something was wrong when he would come home from school.
I just asked him, I'm like, "Hey, I noticed that when you come home after school or come to my office," he was often dropped off at my office, "that you just you really have to pee. Like, you hadn't done it all day. Like, are you using the bathroom at school?" And he's like, "No." And I was like, "Why not? Like, you gotta go to the bathroom." But basically he was like, he's like, "I look like me. And so when I go to a girl's room, people send me to the boys' room. But then people who know me as my birth name send me back to the girls' room. He's like, I just don't know where to go. And he just didn't want to be a bother at school, so he just held it. And so I just asked him, I'm like, well, what bathroom do you want to use? Like, what name should we be using for you? I didn't use the word, are you transgender? Because that wasn't a word that he would know. But I was just like, let's talk about your pronouns. And he laid it all out there. Like, once I finally just sat him down, I was like, hey, buddy, what's going on, And we had a conversation. And I was like, and he just went to bed. And I emailed his principal and I was like, okay, here's the situation. We got to figure this out. And they were very supportive at school. We had just hoped that this was the right thing to do. But then sure enough, within a few days, hearing reports from his teacher that he's finally able to pay attention in school again, seeing him just relaxed at home. He wasn't distracted. He was able to eat an entire meal without getting a tummy ache from anxiety, right? We just kind of saw it. I mean, it didn't take very long. And we're like, okay, we need to do more of this. What are other things that we need to do to make sure that he's feeling loved and supported everywhere he goes, not just at home?
As Briggle looked for ways to support Max, she became aware of the lack of acceptance of LGBTQ children in society and politics. She gradually got involved in activism, protesting against bills that restrict the rights of LGBTQ children.
I mean, I got involved because they were trying to sideline and harass and discriminate against my kid, right? You do what you need to do as a parent to protect your kids, full stop. I would rather change the entire world than change my son. So I got into this advocacy work because I needed to. I needed to make Max happy. I needed to save his life, right? But I found over time that, if I'm gonna be successful in this, I need to be fighting for all LGBTQ people.
In the spring of 2021, Briggle's cause caught nationwide attention. The onset of physical changes at puberty can lead to a crisis for transgender children, raising their risk of suicide. So doctors prescribe medication to delay puberty. In Texas, conservative lawmakers put forward a slate of bills outlawing such medical treatments and even subjecting parents to arrest. Briggle spoke out against these bills in front of a committee in the state Senate. Her powerful testimony was featured nationally in the media.
Taking that support away from him, or worse, taking him away from his family, because we broke the law to provide that support, will have devastating and heartbreaking consequences. And I promise I will call every one of you every single time a transgender child dies from suicide to remind you that their lives could have been saved, but you chose not to.
As a result of opposition from Briggle and others, the bill was voted down.
Trans boys don't want to get their periods, right? They also want to get facial hair, right? Trans girls don't want an Adam's apple. The dysphoria that can occur during puberty can be debilitating and crippling, and can cause a lot of depression. So these medications and this care, this therapy, can really be life-affirming and life-saving for trans people, and these politicians don't understand that. So this bill that I went down to testify against was a bill that was meant to take life-saving, life-affirming care away from transgender children, and then at the same time say that the parents who are doing what is medically appropriate, data-driven best practice, giving them that care, then that somehow makes them child abusers. And that's why I said in my testimony, I'm like, we are not the child abusers. This bill is the child abuse. Taking away medical care from a child in need, that is child abuse. Like, withholding that care is the child abuse.
Briggle believes that with the loving support of families, transgender kids can be true to themselves and grow up happily. But this positive reality rarely appears in the mainstream narrative. She feels that the media tends to push a stereotypical view of LGBTQ children, focusing on their struggles and negative aspects of their lives. Once, Max was asked to appear on a TV program on transgender kids in sport. As he was good at gymnastics, the family was excited to participate.
And it was about trans kids in sports, which is super dope. Like, Max would love to do backflips and show you all the cool things. He could, like, talk about his gymnastics team. And I cleaned my freaking house and I got everything else. I spent a whole day with them, and we did a lot, and I was really excited because, my well-adjusted, amazing child was going to be a part of this story to show, yet again, if you love and support trans kids, they could maybe turn out to be like Max, and isn't that awesome, right? And we did all this work, and then it aired without us. The guy the person who came out to do the shoot with us, I texted him and I was like, "Where's the story? I really want to see it." And he's like, "Oh, like, it aired, but you're not in it." And I was like, "Why not?" And that's what he said. He's like, "It's not sad enough." So we weren't in it. So there has been a narrative that has been kind of pushed forward by the media, which is that trans kids are suffering. What we often hear are stories, the tragic side of kids being kicked off of their sports team, or forced to wear, if they're wearing school uniforms, they have to wear the uniform of the gender that they don't identify with, right? Or like whatever it is, and those stories absolutely, people need to know what's happening, right? So that they can help, right? The reality, again, is that the more that we can love and affirm and support these children for who they authentically are, right? Love and affirm them in who they are, their gender identity. When we do that, they thrive. They literally thrive. And that story is not told enough in the media.
Fighting to protect LGBTQ children in the political and social arena has become a vocation for Briggle. She says that she just wants Max to thrive as he is, a feeling which she thinks is common to all mothers.
So yeah, there is something really universal about a parent's love for their child. And I think it's something that I would hope any parent watching this can understand, that we do what we need to do to provide the best environment for our children in which to thrive, right? In our case, it happens to be working through the political crap to make sure that Max can have equal opportunities as he continues to grow in this state. I think it's also important to recognize that our children do not belong to us, and the ideas and dreams that we might have had for them when they were born, those are our ideas and dreams. It's not theirs, right? And it's also important for us to recognize that and to love our children unconditionally. So wherever they're at in their world, in their life, whatever drives them, whatever their passion is, whatever their gender identity happens to be, it's our job as parents to support that. When I was pregnant, I didn't care the gender of my child. I just wanted a happy, healthy, thriving baby. And that's what I got. And that's what I continue to have, right? So it's important to remember that your child is just as beautiful and miraculous today as they were on the day they were born. Nothing about them has changed.
We asked Amber Briggle to write down a message which she would like to share with the world.
I wrote, "You are perfect just as you are. Love, Mom." And this is not just for Max. This is, I think, for all those trans kids out there who don't get that love and support at home. So I think it's important that they know that they are literally perfect exactly how they are, and that there's a mom out there that loves them.